Hey, this is Bill Gladwell, and welcome to episode number 10 of the Hey Look at Me podcast. This episode, I sit down with comedian Travis Howze. Travis is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, former police officer, and firefighter turned comedian. Travis and I talk about being on the police force and in the firehouse, being voted class clown, the importance of being marketable, the best and worst gigs we've had, using silence on stage, and being addicted to performing. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher. And when you do, leave a 5-star review, and I would really appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter, @BillGladwell, and you can jump on my website with any questions or comments at BillGladwellLive.com. So enjoy episode 10 of the Hey Look at Me podcast.
We don't know you either.
You weren't here for the show? Come on, I introduced myself.
I know, right? This is Bill.
That doesn't mean we know you.
All right, so, Travis Howze, I should say who we have here. And we do a podcast, Hey Look at Me is the name of the podcast. So, and we do it in front of a live studio audience. Oh. And you guys are the live studio audience tonight. Because we just got done with a show, and I didn't do it in front of an audience until 2 episodes ago. We did it one-on-one, and I thought, well, we'll try it one night. And it went well. We got questions and answers. Well, the first time we did it, we had a lot of drunk people. And so we got heckled during the podcast. I had never had that happen
That
before.
might happen with this one with all the people that are here.
I know, right? And we got the wait staff cleaning up the bottles and everything else, so you might hear clanging in the background. So that was fun.
Yeah.
And it's 4th of July weekend. That when we're recording this isn't going to come out for about another 3 weeks, though.
Oh, good. We have a lot of time to edit it and make it sound like
like we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, we had a full house tonight. We were sold out.
That's how we roll, man.
Well, except for one table.
Yeah, one table.
1 or 2 tables. That was it. I don't know what happened with those people.
I mean,
we were sold out. We made free money because they didn't show
there you
up.
go. Thanks for your money.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
no, that was nice, man. It's nice to come home.
That's what was on that table.
That's 2 sellout shows this week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I know the next show sold out, too.
It may be a real person. I don't know. They wrote down the email, so.
Lickens the Dickens.
That's right.
Dick McLickens. This is but this is cool, man. It's I've never gotten to perform this close to home. I grew up here. I graduated here in 1996, and I left to go to the Marines, and I haven't been back. So when I started comedy, I've been doing comedy almost a decade now, and I've always wanted to perform at home. So 2 little sellout shows this time that's a good welcome home party.
It is a welcome home party. So. Yeah, and just before the show, before Travis got here tonight, there was some firefighter friends of yours around here, and I asked, I said, how do you guys know Travis? They said, oh, no, we saw him perform at the back of the firehouse, yeah, which I said, I want to know more about that now.
Perform what?
Yeah, that's what I asked.
Yeah.
And they said, we can't tell you.
Were there animals involved? No. Those were some of the funnest times of my life, man. As a fireman, that's a brotherhood that I can't even explain. It's just tons of pranks all day long. And when I left being a cop, I knew I found home being a fireman. That was a spectacular 8.5-year career. I love it. I wish I could go back. I was a cop in a place called North Charleston, and it's in South Carolina, an hour and a half north of here. And I didn't realize how violent that city was back then. It was the 5th most violent city per capita when I was a police officer there for 2 years. I mean, it was every night we were getting in fights, not because we were looking for it, because we dealt with a bunch of violent people on a regular basis. My head spun. It was like watching a Cops episode for 2 years straight, never getting out of it. It was every night.
See, now I was thinking you were a cop here on the island, and I thought that might have been pretty boring.
Yeah, that would be boring. I did a
walk
ride
down
along
the beach and break fights up.
I did a ride along here with Beaufort County 2 different times before I became a police officer, and I was kind of bored. I was like, man, if this is what it is, I don't want any part of this. But then I went to North Charleston and did a ride along. I was like, whoa, I got to get some of this. And then, lo and behold, I was in the middle of it, and then I got fired.
All right.
Yeah, so everybody gets fired. You guys have been fired before. My wife's here. If you want to come up here, baby, can. We're just doing a podcast.
She listens to you talk all the time, probably.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be a comedian, or did this happen at some point?
No, so I went to school with all these guys, and in 8th grade, I was actually voted class clown with a girl named Beth Keller. And then I remember I went home and I bragged to my father I was class clown, and he was very upset with me. And he says, that's not really an accomplishment. You need to be most likely to succeed. Being a class clown is most likely to not succeed. So look at me now. So 4 years go by, and I graduate high school. Guess what? I get elected class clown again. And my dad was so mad that I felt that I betrayed him so much that I skipped picture day on purpose. So then they gave it to the runner-up, this guy named Peter. They gave it to him, and that's like my biggest regret in life is not getting my picture as a class clown.
I guess I never realized that there was a runner-up to class clown or any of those.
Yeah, they had a voting. The senior class voted who they wanted for class clown,
right?
And it was me, and I guess Peter came second. And when I didn't show up for pictures, they needed somebody, so they called this dude Peter.
Huh? They could have dubbed in an old photo of you. I guess.
Demise of my career.
Was it? I mean, did you want to be a comedian at that point? I mean, you knew you were funny, but
no, I really didn't. I actually had no interest in doing comedy because I wanted to be a Marine, and I went in the Marines, and I was in the infantry. So what we did is we toured all over the world, and you live in a lot of very crappy environments. And after 4 years of doing that, I realized, hey man, I need to get out and experience a little bit of life because this is not. I can't do this for 20 years. This isn't something that you do for 20 years. You're not an infantryman for 20 years. Those guys normally are 4 years, and then they go to something else. And I decided if I'm not going to be in an infantry in the Marine Corps, then I'm just going to get out. So then I got out, and I actually became a firefighter first here in Bluffton, right across the bridge from Hilton.
Okay, yeah.
And that lasted 2 years, and then I went to be a cop. And then when I got fired from being a cop, I just went back to being a fireman.
How'd you decide to go to be a cop from fireman?
Well, because when I left the Marines, they tell you you can be one of two things if you're an infantryman in the Marine Corps. You can get out and become a cop or a fireman. So I was like, well, hell, I'll do both. So
yeah, right now.
I was actually in the application process with the Atlanta Police Department, and that was going very well. And my father talked me out of it. He said, why don't you just stay here and save some money because you're going to move to Atlanta. You don't have any money. You're not going to know anyone. Stay here. And he recommended my friend Derek, who's a fireman in Bluffton. He said, Derek can get you a job. You can live here at home, and you only work 1 day, and then you're off for 2 days. And then I was like, wait a minute. That doesn't sound like a bad deal. So I started being a fireman, and then on my days off, I would bartend, and I was doing pretty good with the money and the ladies. I was young. I was 22. What could you ask for? But I still had that bug to be a police officer. I had to give it a shot. I've always been a guy that I'm going to try. If I want to do something, I'm going to try it. So the bug never went away. So I just had to go get the cop thing out of my system. And when they told me you can't be a cop anymore, I loved being a fireman, so I just went right back to it.
So where'd the comedian come in at?
I don't know, man. I've just always kind of been the center of attention. And through school, and even when I was a fireman, like you said, my buddies, the things that we would do, I can't really talk about. Probably go to jail. And then even when I was a cop, I was really silly on the streets, although I was very focused at times, and I was very serious when I needed to be. But where some police officers are very serious all the time, that's the time I was just cracking jokes with people. I was the guy who would pull you over and just have a conversation with you, and it would get really confusing. You're like, well, why are you even stopping me? I'm like, I don't know. Where's the party at? And so I would get complained on because of things like that. Get complaints. I got complained on one time. A guy got shot in the leg, and I was laughing at him, and I was like, that's not a real gunshot because it got shot with a 22, and it went straight through. It's just a little hole. I mean, I've seen gunshots with people gaping wounds. And when I said that, I was like, man, call us back when you get a real gunshot. And I was just being sarcastic. Well, the whole family kind of wanted to fight me after that. That was kind of bad news. So it was just, I was always making snide remarks, and little sarcasm would come into play, and just had fun with everything. And apparently you can't have fun when you're the cops, when you're police.
Not on the job a whole lot, I guess, huh?
No, not a lot.
Did you do an open mic? What was the first thing that you did that led you into the comedian part of your life?
So the first comedy thing I ever did, I was on my couch at home watching Comedy Central, and I thought to myself, I said, I can do better than that. And I wasn't laughing because when you watch comedy on TV, it's not that funny. I mean, it's engaging, it's interesting, but you're not sitting around laughing.
Tom Arnold? Were you watching Tom Arnold?
I don't remember who it was. It was some, yeah, right. It was some. It was just some guy doing a Comedy Central half hour. Comedy Central Presents, and so I wrote down some jokes and I took them to the firehouse, and I walked in the firehouse. I said, guys, y'all need to sit around. I got a show for you. And they were looking at me like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm going to do some comedy for you. Those are the worst hecklers I've ever had in my life. I mean, you suck. This is bullshit. You're horrible. Quit. Go kill yourself. And I actually put the notepad down for about 6 months after that.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I didn't know how to.
That was a hard crowd to start with.
Firemen are the worst, man.
They knew you.
They're ball breakers. Yeah, man. The firemen are really tough-skinned ball breakers. You can make firemen laugh and have a good time. You're working. You're doing well. So I put it away for 6 months, and then I just kept writing notes every once in a while. And then I went online and tried to figure out how to structure a joke properly. Then two and two started coming together, and I said, okay, you got to do setups and punchlines, and actually have an even flow. So then I tried an open mic at a bar, and then from there I got the bug. I actually got a couple of laughs, and then I got the bug. I was still working as a fireman, and eventually it got to a point where I was getting paid on my off days where firemen have, where I was doing bartending.
Yeah, right.
I quit bartending, and I was going to Atlanta. I was going to Virginia. I was doing shows as a feature, as a middle guy. And
how long did you do open mics, or did you just jump right into the feature?
No, I did open mics for about a year, and then I got to skip the hosting part because I met a cool headliner. Actually, I won a comedy competition in Mississippi. It was an open mic competition, and when I won that, the winner of it got to do a feature spot in at Harvey's South Street Comedy Club in West Tennessee, in Jackson, Tennessee. I had about 10 minutes of material, and then I won this open mic spot, and that was 4 months down the road. Well, 4 months came, and I still had about 15 minutes. So they wanted me to do 30, and the owner calls me and said, "Hey man, I'm guessing you're probably not ready. I want to get somebody else." And I begged him. I was like, "Please give me a shot. I will have it. I will be ready when I come there." And I went there. Fortunately for me, he let me come. And the headliner that I was working with at the time was so cool. He took me under his wing, and he actually took me to St. Louis after that.
Who was the headliner?
His name is the Fry Man.
I've heard.
You heard
I've
of Fry
not
Man?
seen.
He's got 9 fingers. He's a Marine Corps veteran, and that's where it happened. We had that little bond, that brotherhood, and he brought me up there and kind of introduced me to a few people, and I started networking. And before I knew it, I was featuring a lot back then. I was actually paying guys more money to do my shifts than I was making in comedy. I loved it so much. I would pay guys $200 to go make 50, cover my 24-hour shift. And then after time went by, I started getting a little better and started getting to do headlining spots. And then when 2007 happened, we had a fire that killed 9 of our guys. I was injured in that fire. I started getting more serious with comedy because I needed something to attach myself to. I just felt kind of distant from everybody. I backed away from everybody, and I just really went after comedy. In 2010, my symptoms caught up to me, and they told me I couldn't be a fireman anymore. So naturally, only knowing comedy now, can't be a cop. Get fired from that. I just went on the road full time and never looked back. And now I get to do really cool shows for the troops overseas and get to go to the Bahamas for a couple weeks a year and all over the U.S. And it's just really cool.
Very cool. What year was that when you went full time?
March. It was the first part of March of 2010.
So how old are you now?
37.
Really 37 or a comic 37? Do you cut like some years off of the age?
No, I'm really 37. It depends, because when I go, if I'm out in L.A., certain people are asked, like, "How old are you?" I'm like, "I'm 34. And they're just like, "You got crow's feet, man." I'm like, "I'm 35. So then I got these gray hairs coming in. So
it depends on where you're at and who you're with.
Yeah.
All right, got it. What do you want to do?
That's the $1 million question, because I never wanted to do this. I did this because it was fun, and I got good enough to where I could kind of hold my own on stage, I guess, if you will, and not get booed off yet. I have fun with it. I wanted to be a fireman. I really did. I really wanted to retire as a firefighter. And like I tell in my show, I hope that in some way, shape, or form, I'm still helping people by giving back the gift of laughter. And I think what I want is to be able to use my message from the injuries that I sustained to show people that they can still move forward in life despite whatever tragedies come their way, whatever shortcomings they may face. You can still get over those humps with a little bit of effort and hard work. You just need to find something to attach yourself to and really focus and push forward with that. And I'm just kind of, I do fundraisers now for Firefighter Cancer Support Network, the Humane Society, so I try to give back as much as I can too. But I'm just kind of like seeing where it goes.
So comedy's not an avenue to go and try to get your own TV show or be in the movies or anything like that?
It's not what I'm after. I've certainly been approached, and I'm open to it. If it happens, it happens. I'm one of those guys that I believe doors fly open for specific reasons. And if you don't go through those doors, you're foolish. You at least need to walk through and see what's on the other side, and test it out. And if you don't like it, you can always come back through. Maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't slam shut and lock. But we'll see what happens. If those opportunities pan out, then like I say, I'll go with them and just kind of see where this thing goes. It's an interesting ride, man. It really is. And a lot of times we focus on the now, like, why isn't everything happening now? Why don't I have more people at my show now? Why isn't this? But in the bigger scheme of things, that doesn't really matter, because other doors may open and lead you through different avenues. And looking back, if you don't enjoy the time you're spending now, what was it all for? Right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think you really have to enjoy the moment that you're in. And I'm guilty of that. She'll tell you. I'll start bitching more than anybody about something. Then you have to realize, bring yourself back in, like, hey, man, enjoy this moment.
What is the worst gig you ever had? And
I don't know, man. It's really hard because when you have been what we call road dogging for so long, you play so many bad places, they become normal. I've done shows for 2 people. I've done them. There's certain things like Clarksville, Tennessee jumps out at me where I was on stage and there's like 4 people way in the back. You couldn't even see them. You just knew they were back there somewhere. And then they end up dancing. They're dancing to some song that was playing in the bar that they could hear through the wall
while you're on.
Yeah, of the bar next door. And it's just like, why am I up here? They're so countless for me. I don't know those guys. There's so many. I run into guys all the time. They can narrow it down. And I'm like, man, you must have not played that many bad places if you can remember. But I played a lot of bad places. Lots. Felt like, what's that movie where they're throwing all the bottles and when he's in the cage?
Roadhouse? Oh, that's Roadhouse.
Yeah, man, I felt like I've done comedy in some of those places.
Just made him watch it.
Yeah, I've done comedy in some of those places, man. It is brutal. So I try to stay away from them now.
Right. Well, yeah, if you don't have to. What kept you going, though?
You know what? I'll tell you. There is one that sticks out, as a matter of fact. And I say this. I get to go to the Bahamas for 2 weeks a year. And one weekend or one night a week on Thursday
You had a bad
nights,
gig in the Bahamas?
Well, let me tell you. we perform at the Atlantis, and that's a lot of fun, man. Great people from all over the world come. But then they send us, I won't say the name of the resort, they send us off the resort one night. For 2 Thursdays while we're down there, we go to this gig. It's in the basement, like literally in the basement of this rundown resort where it's just an all-inclusive resort. So a lot of young couples come. Well, the thing is, they don't promote the show. They don't tell anybody it's there. They go downstairs and unlock this dungeon door. It looks like an old pirate dungeon. And the lights are completely off. And they turn them on 2 seconds before the show. And there's nobody there. There's the barmaid. That's it. So every time we do the show for the person behind the bar, nobody ever comes down. I don't have any idea why they even have the show. They bring you up. They say, hey, here's Travis Howze. And if anybody did show up, they wouldn't even know that you're a comedian. It's just weird.
I'm not sure if that's even a comedy club. I'm not
No,
sure
it's
what
not a
you're
club.
doing there.
It's not, exactly.
That's more like performance art.
The problem is, I think they're laundering money somehow because we get paid very well for it, so we just go do it. And they're like, well, we need you to do 30 minutes. I'm like, for who? It's like, it's awkward, man. It's me and the other comedian. Like, okay, we're working together for 2 weeks. We know each other's jokes.
So there's not anybody in the audience?
Nobody. If there's anybody, it's 2 people. There's nobody.
I've been in Dangerfields in New York City.
I've been there,
and and not as a performer, but watching. And I've been in there with 2 other people, and they still have the comic come up and do a show. If there's one person in the audience,
you're doing a show.
You're doing a show. Yeah.
I'll tell you now. See, you helped me remember something. I called my mom one time, just the closest I think I got to crying in comedy. I walked outside.
There's no crying in comedy.
I know, right? Walked outside. Dangerfields is on First Ave. I walk outside after the show. I believe it's first.
You were on stage?
Yeah, I was on that night, and it was all European people in the crowd. Just there was no connection, nothing. And this was years ago. I walk outside and I call my mom, and I just sit on the curb and I said, I have no idea what I'm doing here. And she's like, oh, you can do it. And I said, no, you don't understand. That was one of the most awkward feelings I've ever had. They were just staring holes through me. And you can't explain that to people who have never lived that.
That's right.
And you can't get off that stage. If you do, you steal your own fate. Anybody that does work you just lost that work. So you have to, muscle through it. But honestly, as a comic, that's what makes us stronger. And that's why, like, when I come up here tonight, if I don't get a laugh on a certain joke, it doesn't rattle me anymore because I've been battle tested through that. I've trained. That's all of our training to get to where we are today. And I believe, I tell my wife all the time, we are where we are supposed to be right now. For whatever reasons in this universe, we're sitting here doing this podcast for a reason. And everything you've been through has led you to this moment in time. So when I'm not getting laughs, it doesn't bother me anymore. And the silence kills a lot of guys.
Oh, it does?
It does. It really does. And I can't say it. When I get off stage, I'm like, man, I wish I could have given them a better show. But I'm not just going to sit there and sweat bullets anymore with silence.
When you do get silence, though, what do? You're trying to get a connection back with the audience and trying to get something out of them.
Well, what I learned is a lot of times silence isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of times that means they're very well engaged and they're listening to you. Just because they're not laughing.
No, it's when they're talking to each other.
It's when they're talking to each other. That's what you don't want to get.
Like Pat back here.
Yeah, Pat. That's what you don't want.
And I don't think she wasn't engaged. I don't think her husband could hear too well tonight.
Yeah, I thought that was my mom. I was like, somebody tell her what's going on. My mom can't really hear.
Yeah, that is true. And so what keeps you going during those times? I mean, if a new comic is listening to this, or somebody that's been in the business and just has plateaued, what keeps you going to the next club when you get something like that?
My calendar is completely filled up to 2016, and I try not to quit anything. I've never quit anything in my life, and trust me, I'm at that point. Now, we've had these talks recently. Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And sometimes you don't know where the meaning lies in what you're doing. You're searching for that meaning. Like, why am I doing this? Yeah, this is fun. Yeah, you can do well with it money-wise, but I'm away from my family 35 weeks a year.
Yeah, to do well with it, you have to be on the road.
You have to. And like, my wife's a teacher, and she can't come with me. We depend on her income just as much as mine. So honestly, I don't know. I think what keeps me going is there's an adrenaline. I've never been a drug addict or anything, but I think this is what I can relate that to, is if you've ever been on any kind of serious drug, this is the drug right here. It's that juice you get from being up here. And those laughs, it's that feeling of acceptance that we all need, I guess, or we all search for in comedy.
Yeah, and for you guys that are out here in the audience, the podcast is called Hey Look at Me for a reason, because there's an underlying joke with in the profession that, there's a reason, there's something wrong with us that we have to stand in front of a group of people and say, hey, look at me, and then tell stories. And I do something even, I do stupid stuff on top of telling stories.
Yeah, I think yours is harder than what we do. It's very cool what you do, but then, like, when you say silence, sometimes there's some quiet moments in what you do. People are engaged, and a lot of people can't handle that silence.
Yeah, I think just the opposite. I think that what you do is more difficult than what I do.
Oh, thank you. Now I feel like we're trying to bond.
Well, I don't think I don't do stand up. I stand up has always been my influences, but I don't do stand up. But that's why, if you ever go see a mentalist, they are really boring. It's like watching a college professor give a lecture, and there's a handful of them that I'll watch, but most of them are not. So when I put my show together, I wanted people to laugh through it, and so there's jokes built in, but it's not stand up. What's your goal with stand up? You have like some comics go every 7 seconds they have to be laughing, or what's your goal with that?
No, at the end of my show, honestly, I just want people to walk out, look me in the face, smile, and I know that they had a great time. That they're not just telling me that, because sometimes you get that and you can tell, oh, great show. No, when you have a not so great show, they're like, great show. It's like, no, save that. It wasn't great. I like knowing that people, when they walk through that door right there, they can leave whatever troubles they have. They can come in here and laugh, and genuinely laugh, and not worry about what's going on in their life. Just escape for a little bit, because that's what allows me to do. I have plenty of stress going on in my life, but I escape it when I'm up here. So
that's the thing, you can't bring it on stage. You can't take it to work with you.
You cannot.
A lot of people can take their stress and everything from home to work with them, but we can't do it up here.
There's a comic, my buddy Ron Feingold says, you can't laugh and worry at the same time, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I really do.
That's true.
You just can't, and that's my goal. I don't look for timed laughs. I'm not trying to get the 18 laughs per minute thing or whatever that is. I don't live by Judy Carter's comedy Bible. I don't do any of that. I come up here, I have fun, and I want them to have fun too. I think I'm kind of unorthodox in the way that I do comedy, and I like that. And I like for people to feel like they're a part of what I'm doing. So,
yeah. What's the best gig you ever had?
This one.
There you go. That's the answer that we wanted. Yeah.
I think anytime you can do a show, or anytime I get to do a show for military, is very rewarding for me, because it's my sense of giving back to my brothers and sisters in uniform. Anytime I get to do a show for the public service, or fundraisers for the firemen that I've done at the annual FDIC Indianapolis Fire Convention, which is the biggest convention in the world. 32,000 firemen from across the world come to this thing. And you get to do shows for handfuls of those guys while you're there for a week. I got really cool tours coming up to South Korea and Okinawa that I'm looking forward to. Those are going to be some of my favorites, even if the shows suck, just because of the environment. I get a really cool show coming up that I think is going to be one of my favorites. Is with Bill Engvall from Blue Collar Comedy Tour. I'm doing the West Point Military College with him, so 5,000 seater. And
did he have a kid that went there?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember either.
I'm not sure, but I know that we're going to do that show, and it's going to be a blast. We're actually going to be filmed. And I'm excited because the military aspect of it, they'll get a lot of the humor that I do with the military.
Yes.
So, and we're going to capture that on high def. That's going to be really cool.
Now, and that part of your show is I mean, a lot of it is the military, but when you ask who's in what branch out here, that's people really seem to like that part of it.
I do that for several reasons. I do it honestly to set up some of the jokes, and I'll know exactly who I'm dealing with when I make fun of certain branches, because I have tags and stuff that I put on it. And but also I like to say my thanks, and I like for the people to know that those guys have sacrificed whatever they may have sacrificed for them to be in here as well. So it's just a way of pointing them out and saying thank you. So
now I'm going to pull the veil back, probably maybe for you guys out here. But anybody in the business already knows this. I'm not going to say anybody in the business. Anybody that's good in the business probably already knows that.
Then I don't know
it. No, you know it. When people come and see you or me or any good comic, it looks like you're up here just telling stories off the top of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what's going on at all. What's the importance of having a script and not just winging it when you're up here on stage?
I think it's so important to be able to, you can take the finest of professionals and they can make it look like they just thought of that. Even your comebacks to a heckler, anything, those are usually easy because those are industry-wide. We take and pick from each one. I like for mine to be very genuine and appear from the heart, because it is, for the most part, with the exception of the few things that I make fun of that are just kind of BS. I think that some of these jokes I've done thousands and thousands of times, literally. But each time you're up here, these guys have never seen those jokes. It has to be the first time that I've told that joke, and it has to appear that it's the first time I've told it for them, in order for them to buy what I'm selling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the Rolling Stones. I'm sure they're so sick of singing "Start Me Up" and "Brown Sugar," but every time they go out there, they give it 110%. Been doing it for 50 years, and they have to sing it like it's the first time they've sung it. Because if they just go out and phone it in, it's not going to be as good.
Now, how is it the same, or is it different for you, since you brought up the Rolling Stones? Because people will go back to the Rolling Stones and watch them because they want to see their favorites or hear their favorite song and see it perform live. Do you get people that come back that have a favorite joke or a favorite story that you tell, or is it, hey, can you? Do you have anything new?
I don't have anything like, Jeff Foxworthy and Bill Engvall, they had the "Here's Your Sign" and "You Might Be a Redneck," and people really enjoyed that. I don't have those kind of jokes. But I do see a lot of repeat customers. And I've seen them come to multiple shows, and I mean like 5, 6, 7 shows. And I'm telling the same jokes. Not all the time. Some of the jokes are the same. And after the show, they're like, "Oh, man, it was just as funny as the first time." And that means a lot to me when they say that. Because, then that means I didn't fake it and I brought it. Because there were firemen here tonight that I know specifically were just at a show I did in Myrtle Beach during the firefighters convention. And when I saw them, I was like, oh, man, they're going to see the same jokes they just saw 2 weeks ago. And they had a great time. So
that's nice.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question. When anybody asks me to give them advice on doing what I do, the one thing that I tell them that is most important that I think that I can teach them is being bold. And what I mean by that is taking chances that nobody else is going to take, because that's what's got me to where I'm at now. I do things that nobody else really wants to do. For example, I lived in Ohio, and I talked to a couple of friends of mine.
That's dangerous.
I know it is. So I talked to a couple of friends of mine up there after I moved, because I had the #1 show in Gatlinburg, Tennessee for a little over 3 years, and we moved it here. And they said, "You just up and moved?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I did." And that's what they didn't want to do. And that's why they're still just practicing in their bedroom or, into a hairbrush or something like that.
Well, nobody moves forward sitting still.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody came up to you, though, what would be the top thing? What would be the one piece of advice that you would give them that would help them the most, you think?
My honest answer is I get young guys all the time. They ask for advice, and I tell them, look, man, honestly, I'm nobody to give advice, but if you are asking and genuinely wanting to know my opinion on a few things, I'll tell you that, because I'm still trying to figure this out as well. There's guys, obviously, ahead of me that I'd like to be where they are, and there's guys behind me, too, that I kind of really don't want to go back there. But I try to be humble about that in saying that I've only made it this far. If you really want advice, you need to ask the really, the superstars. But a lot of us, obviously, we can't connect with them. Best advice I ever heard was don't take anybody's advice and be yourself. and be as true and honest to yourself as you possibly can. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean be offensive and be over the top dirty, because when I first started, that's how I was. I started in a very, very urban room, and a guy pulled me to the side right before I went on stage one night, and he says, the dirtier you are, the better they're going to love you. And I actually got kind of stuck in that mode for a while, and it was filthy, dirty comedy. And I thought, man, this is great because this is what people want. But that's really not what they want. They want funny. You don't have to be offensive. You don't have to be rude and ugly. So I would say be who you are without trying to be too shocky. And I think you can get a lot further. The cleaner you can work, you can get a lot further clean than you can. Dirty. A lot further. And the money is a lot better, obviously. This is more of a clean environment in here, and I think I probably push the envelope more than a lot of comics that come in here probably.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But I think you and I, as a professional, I approached you with that and asked, what do you want? You told me. I did it the first night, and then we regrouped, and I said, what did you think? You gave me your opinion.
Feedback, yeah.
And I worked on that the next night. And it's not, I'm not going to come in here and be, well, this is who I am. No, this is also a business, and you got to respect the person's place where you're performing too, or they won't have you back. No matter how well you do. So I always try to be mindful of that, and I try to be professional in the sense that I come to you and ask for your feedback. A lot of guys are like, I don't care what anybody has to say. Well, you need to. You need to at least. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen as much as you speak, twice as much as you speak, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like tonight, I think the show went very well. I cut out a couple of things that we talked about. I think it went fine.
And you have kids?
I do. I have one. She's 14 months old.
Oh, so she doesn't even know what you do yet.
No.
I always like to hear the feedback from the kids to see what they think about it.
She just thinks I'm the guy that comes around and sees mommy every once in a while because I'm never home. And then I just pop in the door and she's like, oh, I guess it's my cue to go to my crib now because y'all about to make some noise for 20 seconds and then I can come back out.
We had comedian Andy Woodhall we had on the podcast, and actually his episode just came out this week. And he talks about he's got a couple stepdaughters, and they don't think he's cool at all. And I said, well, what about your stepdaughter's friends at school? And he goes, I don't know, but they won't tell me if they do. He said he did tell a story that he said my stepdad's going to be on Comedy Central because he just filmed a Comedy Central special. And they said, no, prove it to us. So they pulled him up on the internet, and they said, he's got a different last name than you. I said, well, yeah, he's my stepdad. But then they just couldn't. Yeah, I know, right? So, but, yeah, I don't know what the kids think of me. It's just, back here. So.
I always thought about that, man, because when I was I actually had that talk with my dad when I left the fire department. I was in a really bad place because I didn't want to leave. They made me leave. And I told my dad, I said, what am I going to tell my kids? That I'm a comedian? It's like, how are they going to? He goes, your kids are going to love you no matter what you do. Yeah. And that really sank in. I was like, you know what? You're right. I don't have to be running into burning buildings to prove that I'm a good person. I can still be a good person and a great father and come up here and tell jokes. They're still going to love me the same, especially if I can afford to buy their shoes that they want.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing clean comedy.
You get your material though from the kids as they grow up too.
I'm waiting for it, man.
Yes.
I started tonight. I started writing a little bit on the baby monitor thing. I don't know if you heard it, but
yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm starting to ease her into it a little bit, the kid stuff, and I found that the family jokes and the kid stuff, people love that, man. They really do. So I think I'm gonna start dabbling in that a little more.
Yeah, and because of what I do the mentalism, and I was a stage comedy hypnotist for 20 years for the corporate market before I rolled it over to the mentalism show. So that, like my social experiments, to see what I can get them to do. And the one story, they got up at dinner table and lunch table all the time, and they would walk around and not sit down. So we showed pictures and videos on YouTube of hemorrhoids and explained that's what happens when you eat and walk around. And now they sit down and they stay. So it's like a little experiment.
Very nice. See, I'm kind of that kind of dad, and she comes from a different. This is part of our thing. Is she comes from a different lifestyle as I do. She's more proper. She's very. She doesn't pass gas and all that. But she does.
What do you teach?
I teach first grade.
First grade, all right.
So what I'm worried about is
I'm telling you, the hemorrhoid thing will keep them in their seat.
Our parenting skills are going to be so much different. Whereas I'll fart if I have to, or burp or whatever. Mom won't go outside and be all private about it. I say things that baby probably shouldn't hear, like things I probably say at a comedy show. I'll probably say at home, and the baby might be like, what does F mean? So I'm just afraid that we're going to get into it over the parenting skills issue.
Well, the kids have heard a lot of stuff because they sometimes sit in the back behind the bench there. And my daughter back there, she goes, I had my earphones in, but I heard the F word from him the other night, is what she said. So I think it's okay, though, because we've explained, okay, you can hear it and you know what it is. Just don't say it when you're at school or in public.
Don't say it.
And
it's, for me, the thing is, too, they say a lot of uneducated people, they speak with, with vulgarity.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. I know a lot of very educated guys that were military, police, firemen, and they cuss like sailors. Part of the environment that I was in for 14 years. Unfortunately, I can't use that as an excuse, but I like to. I was literally around a bunch of sailors, cussing all the time and busting balls, and that's kind of where my vocab comes from. And I try to watch it as much as I can, but sometimes I come up and let the F flag fly.
So let me ask you this. On the business side, you gave us an opinion on what you would tell people, which is be yourself.
Yes.
on the actual being on stage side. On the business side, what got you, one thing, and then we'll wrap this up, but what got you to where you're at now? What, business-wise, is it persistence, or what is it for you? What keeps you good? What has gotten you to this point?
Without a doubt, it's marketability. And
Okay.
I think when I finally realized funny has so little to do with comedy, it is important. And most people come into a club, they think, yes, you have to be funny, but here's the difference. I do tell new guys this. You take Bill and you take Travis and you put us side by side, our headshots with our bios, and there's 2 shows simultaneously, but you can only afford to go to one show. You can go to Bill's or you can go to Travis's. What about you is going to make the people come to your show versus going to see the other guy? And I can see that dumbfounded look in a lot of people's eyes. They're like, I don't know, I'm funny. And I'm like, no. What's going to put butts in the seats? Because that's what's going to get you hired.
That's right.
And that's what's going to keep you getting brought back. I listen to things that staff members say about certain shows, and 2 things that keep you coming back: packed house and liquor sales, drink sales, keeps you coming back. I can promise you, if I came in here and I wasn't, and good reviews obviously, but if I wasn't as funny, if I was the funniest guy in the world and I couldn't get 3 people in here, right? What good am I?
Yeah.
Or if I was mediocre funny and I could pack this place and make the owners a bunch of money. This is a business at the end of the day. It's business before it is a show, I think.
It is.
That's how I run it. Business show, not show business. So what I did for myself, once I felt that I was funny enough to really start working more, I said, how do I sell myself to any audience? Well, I used my backgrounds as a Marine, a cop, a firefighter, and came up with Funny Under Fire. And when I go to different cities, I have a press pack. Nobody taught me how to do this. I figured it out on my own. I approach different media outlets, and I talk to club owners and see what kind of discounts, if not free tickets, they'll be willing to give military and emergency services personnel.
Yeah, you asked me that when you came in.
Yeah, and a lot of clubs pick it up, and a lot of people benefit from that because they get to show their support for those individuals and veterans as well. They get to come to shows. Some of them are free. Some of them are buy one, get one. Some are 10% off. Some are $5 off.
And we did the same thing you did. We approached the firehouses and also the police stations here on the island.
I think marketability is what got me to where I am, because I think if I were just as funny as I am now without the marketability, I'd still be out, playing those gigs we were just talking about on a regular basis versus playing better venues. So
that's right. And we may have one of those gigs tomorrow night because it's the 4th of July, and we've got 8 tickets sold, I think. Yeah. So at 10 o'clock at night.
Those 8 people will get a hell of a show.
After the fireworks.
That's it, man.
So if people want to get a hold of you that are listening to the podcast, how can they do that?
You can Google me, Travis Howze, Howze. There's plenty of information there, and my website's right there. That's the easiest way. You can find my website at funnyunderfire.com, or you can take a chance and spell my name, TravisHowze.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that. I'm not a hard guy to find. I'm not secretive. You got to be easy to find in this business.
I just saw a magician, heard of a magician, so I went to look him up on my phone. And this has nothing to do with you or me. It's got to do with marketability that you talked about.
Yes.
And so I pulled up his website. I Googled him, pulled up his website. Couldn't find it. It just had the flash thing. His whole website's in flash, and nobody can see it on a cell phone. No, I don't think, because you put business first, and so do I. I don't think people understand how important that is to.
It's most important. It's the most crucial thing to your career.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of rebuilding my website. The girl that built mine disappeared, and it was all done in coding.
Oh.
So I can't update it and fix it. So I'm scrambling, trying to now. I mean, it's decent for what it is, but now have a new team working on building and branding a new one. So I'm excited about that. So you got to stay current too as well.
Yes,
you got to stay current with your marketing. Your marketing tools need to be current
and interact.
Yep,
it's social interaction, Facebook, Twitter, and all that stuff.
That's right.
Thanks, Travis. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for
sticking around. And
had a blast.
We got a show tomorrow night after the fireworks, and it'll be fun.
Good.
All right,
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Handshake.